If stories of broken people slowly becoming a real family make your chest ache in the best way, stay with this video till the very end. And if Emily and these three little girls touch something deep inside you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another healing story we share here. Emily Carter stood on the sidewalk outside the cafe and tried to remember how to breathe. The glass in front of her reflected a version of herself she barely recognized. A navy dress instead of scrubs, mascara, hair actually curled, pinned back with a small silver clip Maggie had bullied her into buying. She looked like someone who might still believe in first dates. 6 weeks ago, she had stood beside a different piece of glass, the lid of a coffin. Her mother's face, too still, distorted by tears. Since then, her life had shrunk to 2 places: Luke's hospital, pediatric wing, and a 1-bedroom apartment that smelled faintly of detergent and grief. No cafes, no holidays. No one calling just to ask how she was. Only kids, monitors, parents who cried on her shoulder and then went home. Now she was here because Maggie had looked her in the eye at the nurse's station and said, "If you don't let someone buy you coffee soon, I'm staging an intervention. I already set up the profile. He seems nice. He has a dog. And kids. You like kids." Emily had laughed without humor. "I like kids who can go home with their parents," she'd said. Maggie hadn't backed down. "Just go," she'd said. "Put on a dress. Your mom would haunt me if I let you disappear like this." So Emily had put on the dress. Now she pushed the cafe door open and stepped into warmth. The place looked like a movie set. Exposed brick, soft jazz, the smell of good coffee and buttery pastries. At the back, near the window, a man in a black jacket sat with his phone face down on the table. Dark hair, late 30s, shoulders that looked like they carried more than a messenger bag. He glanced up as the door chimed. Their gazes met. Something like recognition flickered there. He stood, a little too fast, like someone used to jumping when things needed doing. "Hi," he said. "You must be Emily." She nodded, heart punching her ribs. "Yes. Sorry, I'm not late, am I?" "No," he said, right on time. His voice was warm, a little rough at the edges. They sat. Up close, he looked tired in a familiar way. The kind of tired that didn't come from one bad night's sleep, but from months of holding it together. He cleared his throat and reached into his jacket. "I brought some notes," he said, sliding a folded sheet across the table. She blinked. "Notes?" she asked. "Just basic stuff." He said, "Schedule, snacks they like, snacks they pretend to hate, but secretly don't. Nap times. I figured it might help." Her smile froze. "Nap times," she repeated. "For the girls," he said. "3 of them. Triplets. The agency said it's best to be organized from day one." For a moment, the world tilted. "Wait," she said. "Agency," he frowned. "Bright Start Nanny," he said slowly. "You are from Bright Start, right?" "No," she said. "I'm from Tinder." They stared at each other. "You're not the new babysitter. You're not my blind date." Silence pressed at their ears, then popped. "Oh my God," Emily blurted, putting a hand over her face. "This is so embarrassing." He let out a short, stunned laugh. "Honestly," he said, "this is on brand for my life right now." He ran a hand through his hair. "I'm Graham," he added, almost as an afterthought. "Graham Donovan." "Emily," she said, even though he already knew. "Right," he said. "Emily Carter. Not from Bright Start Nanny." "Graham Donovan. Not from Tinder," she replied. It broke some of the tension. They both smiled, weak and bewildered. Before either of them could decide whether to stay or flee, the door at the back of the cafe burst open. Tiny footsteps pounded across the hardwood floor. "Daddy," a high voice called. 3 little girls in matching pink dresses barreled toward them, hair bouncing, shoes squeaking. A teenage sitter jogged behind them, breathless. "Mr. Donovan, I'm so sorry," she said. They refused to wait outside. Lily said it was an emergency. Graham stood, turning toward the chaos. "Hey, hey," he said, dropping into a crouch. What's going on? The girl in front, Lily, apparently skidded to a stop. Her gaze snagged on Emily. The world narrowed to a line between those two faces. Lily's dark eyes went huge. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Lily gasped. "Mommy," she whispered. "Oh." Emily's breath caught. Behind Lily, the other two girls froze. One with sunglasses pushed up on her head, the other clutching a stuffed bunny. They stared at Emily. Their mouths fell open in matching O's. "Mommy," they cried, in perfect unison, and hurled themselves at her. Emily staggered back as three pairs of arms wrapped around her legs. Small fingers gripped the fabric of her dress. A little face pressed into her stomach. The cafe went oddly quiet. Emily managed. "Sweethearts, I'm not." Graham's face had gone pale. "Girls," he said, voice shaking. Hey, this is Emily. She's not." His words tangled in his throat. Emily looked down. Three sets of features, similar but not identical. Three small bodies radiating heat. Three hearts beating against her like fists on a locked door. Her own mother's hand flashed in her memory. Cool, dry, wrapped around hers in a hospital bed. Her chest ached. One of the girls, Mia, she would learn later, peered up, eyes glossy. "You look like Mommy in my dream," she whispered. "She has hair like yours." It would have been so easy to pull away, to untangle gentle hands, to apologize, to run outside into crisp air and never come back. That was what she wouldn't know. Walking away from rooms where someone might need her too much. Instead, she heard herself exhale. She bent down until she was eye level with them. "Hi," she said softly. "I'm Emily." "Queen Mommy," Lily corrected, dead serious. Emily smiled, the expression stretching muscles she hadn't used in weeks. "Well," she said, "maybe just for today I can be your dream mommy. How does that sound?" All three faces lit up. Graham stared at her as if she had just performed some kind of miracle. "You don't have to," he began. "I know," she said quietly, without looking at him. "I want to." It was the first true thing she'd said to herself in a long time. Graham's house sat at the end of a tree-lined street, the kind of place realtors described as family-friendly, and Graham had once assumed he would grow old in with Amelia. The front yard was small, with a crooked mailbox and chalk scribbles on the walkway. The porch held three little scooters and one very tired pair of adult shoes. Inside, the air smelled like crayons, laundry detergent, and faintly burned toast. "This is our kingdom," Lily announced, throwing her arms wide. "I'm the dragon," Sophie added, baring her teeth. Mia slipped her hand into Emily's, saying nothing. Emily let herself be pulled along. She noticed everything. The photos on the wall, three infants in hospital hats, Amelia's tired, ecstatic grin, Graham's arms full of pink blankets, the way every doorway had pencil marks showing growing heights, the absence of any new adult shoes by the door that weren't Graham's. In the living room, the girls sprawled across the rug, arguing over crayons. Graham hovered, unsure. "I'm sorry," he said quietly to Emily. "About earlier, they have big feelings. We're working on it." Emily knelt on the rug. "I like big feelings," she said. "I work in pediatrics. Trust me, I've met worse." She smiled at the girls. "Okay, your highnesses," she said. "What are we drawing?" Lily shoved a crayon toward her. "A family," she said, "with a queen." Emily's throat tightened. "Then we'd better make it a good one," she replied. They drew until small hands smudged more than they colored. They ate grilled cheese that Graham sheepishly admitted was his specialty. They turned the couch into a fortress and read books until eyelids drooped. At some point, Graham slipped away to the kitchen, carrying plates. When he came back, he stopped in the doorway. Emily sat on the couch with all three girls draped over her, Sophie half asleep on her shoulder, Lily across her lap, Mia pressed into her side. Emily's arms curved around them, protective. Her eyes were closed, but there was a softness in her face he hadn't seen before. He watched, something in his chest aching and loosening at the same time. It had been a long time since his house had looked like this. Lived in. Held. Emily opened her eyes, caught him staring, and flushed. "Sorry," she whispered. They sort of fell. They do that, he said. It's not your fault. Her gaze dropped to the girls. It's been a long time since I felt like this, she murmured. Like what he asked, she hesitated. Alive, she said. The word hung in the air between them. She told herself she wouldn't go back. One chaotic afternoon didn't erase 5 years of guilt. One living room fortress didn't fix the image that woke her at night: a smashed car, sirens, blood on asphalt. But the next week, she found herself on Graham's porch again, a small tote bag in her hand. Inside the bag, Sophie's pink hair clip, a napkin with a crayon drawing labeled Queen Emily, a pair of socks Mia had kicked off somewhere between the couch and the stairs. She rang the bell. The door flew open before she finished exhaling. Emily, three high voices squealed. They slammed into her like a tidal wave. You came back, Lily said, clinging to her waist. We missed you every day, Sophie added, which might have been an exaggeration, but didn't feel like it. Mia didn't say anything. She just hugged tighter. I just came to return your treasures, Emily said. Her smile betrayed her. Graham appeared behind them, barefoot, coffee mug in hand. I didn't think I'd see you again, he admitted. Me neither, she said. He stepped aside. Come in, he said, at least long enough to give back the socks. It was supposed to be a 5-minute drop-off. It became a life. Days folded into weeks. Emily's visits became routine. Sometimes she came after an early shift, still smelling faintly of antiseptic and bubblegum-flavored medicine. Sometimes she arrived after dark, when bedtime had stretched thin and tempers thinner. She made grilled cheese when Graham burned dinner. She reattached Teddy's ear with a tiny emergency sewing kit. She invented a game called Feelings Weather. They sat at the kitchen table with a sheet of paper taped to the fridge. Emily drew a sun, a cloud, a thunderstorm, a rainbow. Every morning, she said, you put a sticker under how your inside weather feels. Sunny if you're happy, stormy if you're mad or scared, clouds if you're sad, rainbows when you feel a little bit of everything. Lily slapped sun stickers with abandon. Sophie smacked storms on the paper like she was picking a fight with the sky. Mia hovered between cloud and nothing at all. They're just stickers, Emily told her gently. They don't make the feeling worse. They just help us see it. Mia's fingers trembled, then slowly placed a small gray cloud. Okay, she whispered. Graham watched from the doorway, dish towel in his hands. He saw the way Lily's panic eased when Emily was 15 minutes late and actually texted to say so. He saw Sophie hand over a sweater that had belonged to Amelia, letting Emily fold it without snatching it back. He saw Mia sit on the floor with Emily during a thunderstorm, squeezing a soft rubber ball and breathing in time with her instead of hiding under the bed. He saw himself, too, leaning on the counter, sitting on the back steps after the girls were asleep, talking to someone who didn't change the subject when he mentioned Amelia's name. Sometimes I feel like moving on is betrayal, he said one night, staring at the patchy lawn. Like if I laugh too hard or feel too much for someone else, I'm erasing her. Emily hugged her knees. Maybe it's the opposite, she said quietly. Maybe staying miserable forever is the real betrayal. She loved you. She loved them. Would she want you to freeze your life at the worst moment? He thought about it for a long time. I don't know, he admitted. She looked up at the sky. I didn't get to ask my mom that, she said. So I have to guess. And I'm guessing she'd want me to. At least try to be happy. Otherwise, what was the point of her working so hard to keep me alive in the first place? The string lights above them hummed softly. Somewhere, a dog barked. A car drove by, its headlights briefly sweeping the fence. They sat in the quiet, their griefs side by side. On Wednesday nights, Emily sat in a different circle. Plastic chairs, a coffee pot that had seen better years, a whiteboard with the words staff support scrawled in green marker. Dr. Lane stood at the front, glasses perched on their nose. Today, they said, we're talking about the decisions that still wake us at night. The room shifted. Doctors, nurses, techs, all of them looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Emily stared at her hands. When it was her turn, her voice came out steady, practiced from years of internal rehearsals. I used to work in labor and delivery, she said, before pediatrics. A murmur, a tilt of heads. There was a patient, she went on. Triplets, mild preeclampsia, blood pressure stabilized. She wanted to go home. She missed her husband, her bed, the feel of not being a patient. She could see Amelia's face, even though at the time it had been just another tired, hopeful woman. The attending was in surgery, Emily said. We were short-staffed. Monitors looked fine. I was on my third double. I signed the discharge. She swallowed. On the way home, she had a seizure. Car crashed. They rushed her back. Saved the babies. Not her. The words tasted like metal. I left OB a month later, she said. I told everyone I just liked kids better. What I really meant was, I never wanted to be in the same room as a pregnant woman again. Lane's gaze was kind. You made a decision in a broken system. They said, you didn't drive the car. You didn't cause the seizure. It doesn't matter, Emily said. She's still dead. Those babies still don't have a mother. Do they have a nurse? Dr. Lane asked. Who understands what it's like to care so much it hurts? Emily blinked back tears. Sometimes, she whispered. Sometimes they do. The day everything snapped into focus started like any other. The girls wanted colored paper for a mommy book. A scrapbook of memories. Graham brought down a plastic bin from the top of the closet, dust puffing out as he pried the lid off. Inside lay fragments of a life Amy had started to build and never finished. Hospital bracelets, printed ultrasound photos, a folded piece of paper with shaky handwriting. All three here, all three breathing. Thank you. The girls oohed and awed over the bracelets, tiny circles of plastic stamped with their names. Emily's eyes locked on the hospital name. West, Luke's Medical Center, Obstetrics. The date, her stomach swooped. Graham asked, you okay? Fine, she said, too quickly. Just remembering how small they were. Later, when the girls were busy gluing glitter to construction paper, Emily slipped into the hallway, heart pounding. In the bedroom, she reached for the frame on the dresser. It was a photo she'd noticed before but never examined closely. Amelia, pregnant, standing by a hospital window, hands on her swollen belly. Light from the window washed her in gold. In the reflection of the glass, a nurse moved past, clipboard in hand. Emily squinted. The angle caught just enough of the badge to show 3 letters E. Care. Her knees threatened to give way. She put the frame down carefully. That night, in her apartment, Emily placed her St. Luke's labor and delivery badge on the table. The plastic rectangle seemed harmless. Her own face, younger, less lined. The words, registered nurse. She stared at it until the room blurred. She had always known the triplets she'd saved that night existed somewhere. She had never thought she would tuck them into bunk beds and cut the crusts off their sandwiches and hold their hands during thunderstorms. Now the possibility that they were the same girls sat in front of her like an open file. She needed to be sure. The records room at St. Luke's smelled like paper and toner and other people's secrets. Emily stood at the counter while the clerk peered at a computer screen. Last name, he asked. Donovan, she said. Amelia. Triplets. 5 years ago. He typed, squinted. Here it is, he said. Looks like a doozy. He printed the file and slid it to her. Emily carried it to a corner and opened it. Admission, vitals, blood pressure readings, nurse's notes. Her own handwriting threaded through it. On the discharge summary, her signature sat at the bottom, neat and unquestioning. On the last page, she saw the readmission, the code, the surgery, the time of death. Her hand shook. The file trembled. Somewhere in the hospital, an overhead announcement crackled. A monitor beeped. A cart rolled past the door. Inside her, everything went very still. She didn't remember the walk from the hospital to Graham's house, only the feeling of rain on her cheeks and the numbness in her fingertips. The girls were at preschool. The house was quiet. She sat at the kitchen table with a pen and a sheet of paper. It took 3 tries to start. The first 2 she tore in half. Graham, there's something you don't know. You deserve to. 5 years ago, I worked in labor and delivery at St. Luke's. She wrote it all. The double shift, the numbers that looked good, the tired woman who laughed and said she'd be careful. She wrote about the whispers the next morning, about the way she'd thrown up in the staff bathroom, about leaving OB and pretending it was just a change of interest. She wrote about the café, the girls calling her mommy, the afternoons in his living room, how every laugh felt like a borrowed thing, how every love she felt for them came with a knife. I am so sorry, she wrote, for what I did, for what I didn't do, for being in your house without telling you. I will not come back. This is not a plea for forgiveness. It is just the truth you should have had from the beginning. She signed it with a hand that barely held steady. Emily, upstairs. The girl's room was a tangle of blankets and stuffed animals. She stood at the doorway for a long time, watching sunlight fall across 3 small beds. She stepped in and gently straightened a pillow here, a blanket there. She picked up Teddy from the floor and tucked him in. I'm sorry, baby, she whispered, brushing a curl from Lily's forehead in her mind. I'm so sorry. Downstairs, she left the letter under Graham's coffee mug, where he couldn't miss it. Then she took her bag, her keys, and the small bunny Mia had once pressed into her hands, so you won't be alone, and walked out into the rain. Graham almost didn't see the envelope. He came home between meetings to grab a file, mind already on conference calls and grocery lists and whether he'd remembered to wash Sophie's favorite dress. The house felt wrong the moment he stepped inside. On the kitchen table, by his half-drunk mug of coffee, lay an envelope with his name on it. He sat down slowly and opened it. By the second paragraph, his chest felt like it was being crushed. He saw it all through her eyes. The hospital, the decision, the aftermath. He saw it through his own, too. The way Amelia had smiled when she called him from the hospital that last time. The nurse here is wonderful, she'd said. Young, so gentle. I feel safe. He'd smiled, sitting in his car outside the fire station. I'm glad, he'd said. Save some of that gentleness for me. She had laughed. Bring me coffee and I'll think about it, she'd said. It had been the last normal conversation of his life. He had blamed himself, quietly for years, for not insisting on driving her, for not begging her to stay one more night, for not being able to be in 2 places at once. He had never put a name to the nurse in the story. It had always been a blur of scrubs and kindness. Now the blur had a name. Emily. He could have let the anger come. It would have been easy to point at the signature and say, you should have known. But as he read line after shaking line, what rose instead was a something heavier. Recognition. She had done what he had done. Trusted a system that told her things were fine, believed a woman who wanted to go home, and then she had carried that night like a stone in her chest. Same as he had, except she had been alone with it. He folded the letter carefully and put it in his pocket. Then he grabbed his keys and went back out into the rain. Emily sat on the metal bench at the bus stop, shoulders hunched against the drizzle. The small suitcase at her feet held very little. Clothes, a photo of her mother, a mug she liked. Mia's bunny lay in her lap, fur damp at the ears. She watched cars pass and tried not to think about 3 girls coming home to an empty space where she had been. A shadow fell over her. An umbrella tilted, covering her from the rain. She looked up. Graham stood there, hair wet, jacket darkened by water. The look on his face was complicated, sad, determined. You read it, she said. There was no point pretending. I did, he said. She nodded once. I'll call the hospital about a transfer, she said. I won't come near the girls again. I couldn't let you not know. Her voice shook. She hated it. He sat down beside her on the bench, the umbrella awkwardly covering them both. I need to tell you something, too, he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, cream-colored handkerchief. The initials A, D, were embroidered in one corner. My wife's, he said. Last thing of hers I kept with me all the time. He unfolded it. Inside, tucked into the fabric, was a worn slip of paper. He handed it to her. The handwriting was feminine, looping, a little messy. If anything ever happens to me, it read, please don't try to do this alone. Find someone kind. Not perfect, just kind. Someone who knows what it's like to be tired and still show up. Someone who will love all four of you the way I do. Emily's throat closed. She wrote that after the girls were born, Graham said, she was always planning for every worst case. It annoyed me back then. He huffed a laugh that wasn't really a laugh. I forgot about this, he said, until today, until your letter. Emily stared at the words. I am not that person, she whispered. I'm the reason they don't have her. You are not the reason she had preeclampsia, he said quietly. You are not the reason her brain misfired in a car. You are not drunk drivers or broken guardrails or understaffed hospitals. And I signed the paper, she said. So did she, he replied. With her whole heart, she wanted to go home. She chose to trust you. And you have spent 5 years punishing yourself for being human. Rain drummed on the plastic roof above them. If you need to hate someone, he went on, hate the system. Hate me for not dragging her back to that hospital bed. But don't stand in front of my kids and call yourself the villain in their story. Her eyes filled. How can I love them? She asked. When every time I look at them, I see what they lost. Graham's voice softened. Maybe, he said. You can love them because you know exactly how much it hurts to lose someone. He nodded toward the bunny in her lap. They chose you, he said, before any of us knew the details. Lily saw you and decided. Sophie argued with you and decided. Mia gave you her rabbit and decided. And he swallowed. I've been deciding for a while. Quietly. She blinked at him. Emily, he said, I'm not here to drag you back to my house so you can pay for your mistake with years of service. I'm here to ask if you can imagine a life where you stop paying for it at all. With us, with them, with someone who knows the whole story and still wants you there. The bus pulled up, hissing, doors opened. The driver glanced at them, then at the road. Are you getting on? He called. Emily looked at the bus, at the empty seats, at the safe, anonymous future it promised. She looked at the note in her hand. Someone kind, not perfect, just kind. She thought of Lily's arms around her legs in the cafe, of Sophie's storms on the feelings chart, of Mia's small voice by her bed, please don't leave again. Our hearts can't take losing someone else. Her own heart ached so much it was almost a relief. She stood. Not today, she said to the driver. The doors closed. The bus pulled away. Rain misted around them. Okay, she said, turning back to Graham. I don't know how to forgive myself, but I can try not doing it alone. Relief loosened his shoulders. Good, he said, because I really need help with third-grade math someday. She laughed, a wet, shaky sound. They walked home in silence, under the same umbrella. Emily had never been to the cemetery with them before. The girls stayed with Maggie this time. This part, Graham said, should be just the two of them first. The headstone stood under a maple tree, carved with simple words. Amelia Donovan, beloved wife and mother, a light we still follow. Emily held a bouquet of white daisies. Her hands shook as she knelt. I'm sorry, she said softly, for that night and mine, for not keeping you here, for walking into your house 5 years later without knowing it was yours. She swallowed. I've spent every day since trying to pay for a moment I can't change, she went on. But your girls, they don't need a martyr. They need someone who will show up, make grilled cheese, fix teddy bears, sit with them when it storms. She brushed her fingers over the carved letters. I can't be you, she said, but I promise I will love them as fiercely as I know how, and I will tell them how brave and stubborn and loving their first mom was. I won't erase you. I'll stand next to you. Behind her, Graham's footsteps crunched on gravel. I never told anyone what she said to me, he admitted, right after the girls were born. Emily looked up, and she told me, if I can't walk this road with you, find someone who can, someone kind, someone who sees the whole story, not just the sad part. He smiled, a little sadly. I think she'd like you, he said. Emily wiped her face with the back of her hand. I hope so, she whispered. She turned back to the stone. Thank you, she said, for trusting me with them, even if you didn't know my name. A breeze stirred, lifting a petal from the bouquet. It spun in the air and settled near her shoe. She took that as an answer. The backyard on their wedding day was not perfect. The grass had bare patches. The decorations were made from construction paper, string, and a lot of tape. The daisies in the corner still looked a little unsure about their new home. But the light strung overhead glowed warm as the sun dipped. Neighbors sat on folding chairs. Maggie cried before anything even started. Emily stood at the back door, smoothing the simple white dress she had found on sale. Her hands shook, but her heart felt strangely steady. On her wrist, 3 small bracelets twisted together, pink beads from Lily, blue from Sophie, yellow from Mia. Her mommy band, the girls had insisted. Ready, Graham asked, appearing in the doorway. He wore a suit that didn't quite fit and a grin that did. Probably not, she said, but yes. They walked out together. Lily, Sophie, and Mia scattered daisy petals down the makeshift aisle, arguing in whispers about who was using too many. At the front, under an arch of paper flowers, their elderly neighbor, Mrs. Whitaker, held a thin booklet with shaky hands. We are not here, she began, voice quivering, to replace what was lost. We are here to bless what has grown in its shadow. Emily felt tears prick her eyes before Mrs. Whitaker even reached the vows. When it was her turn to speak, she took a breath. I don't have fancy words, she said. I just have this. I thought I had disqualified myself from ever being a mother, a wife, anything except a nurse who works and goes home alone. She looked at Graham. Then you and 3 very loud, very stubborn little girls sat in a cafe and decided otherwise, she said. Laughter rippled through the crowd. I can't promise I'll never make mistakes, she went on. I've already proved that wrong, but I can promise I won't run when it hurts. I won't disappear when it gets messy. I will stay. With you. With them. With all of it. Graham's own voice shook when he replied, I thought moving on meant leaving Amy behind. He said, Then you walked into our lives and taught me that carrying love forward is the opposite of forgetting. It's remembering so hard it grows. He glanced at the girls lined up beside them. I promise to keep showing up for you, he said to Emily. To listen when the past feels too heavy. To let you remind me that sometimes we did the best we could with what we had. And to always keep extra grilled cheese supplies in the house. The girls whooped. Mrs. Whitaker declared them husband and wife. They kissed, gentle and sure. Lily threw her remaining petals straight up into the air in celebration. Sophie tried to catch them. Mia just watched, smiling that small, secret smile of hers. Later, when the chairs had been pushed aside and the lemonade was mostly gone, the 5 of them sat under the maple tree. Lily's head rested in Emily's lap. Sophie leaned against Graham's side. Mia curled between them, half asleep. The daisy bush swayed in the breeze, its petals bright against the fading light. Above them, the sky turned deep blue. First one star, then another blinked into view. Emily let her eyes close for a moment. She felt the weight of Lily's hair against her arm, the rise and fall of Mia's breathing, the warmth of Graham's hand over hers. Mom, Mia murmured. Yes, Emily said. Are we a real family now? Mia asked. Emily smiled. We've been a real family for a long time, she said. Today just makes it official. And you'll stay, Lily mumbled, not quite awake. Emily squeezed her hand. I'm not going anywhere, she said. I'm home. The camera, if there had been one, would have pulled back then. 5 figures under a tree, paper decorations fluttering, daisy petals catching the wind. A family not built the way anyone planned, but built all the same. If Emily's journey and this little family's second chance stirred something in you, thank you for staying with the story all the way here. If you'd like more slow, healing tales like this, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us share more stories of broken people finding their way back to love.